So when a person is diagnosed as being chemically dependent, that's when a person is required to go into residential treatment. That is a 24/7 experience. At the Phoenix, we have two facilities, one for the males, one for the females, where they're there for all day, 24/7, and they're in there as long as medical necessity dictates. When people are chemically dependent, there is a change in that physiological process in the brain. And once that's occurred, the person has to manage the disease of addiction the rest of their life. So as a result, residential treatment addresses post-acute withdrawal, which is that initial part of dealing with tolerance and withdrawal. We have an addictionologist on board who deals with that from a pharmacological standpoint to help with detox, as well as to try to assess any psychiatric issues that may be associated with the disease. That's referred to as comorbid. The research shows that 80% of the people suffering from the disease of addiction or who are chemically dependent also have psychiatric conditions. But that's something that's difficult to assess at the very beginning, so that's something that may be determined a little bit later on in recovery support. But as part of that disease management and that acute care, that as the brain is healing, certain medications may come on board to help the brain heal. After you're dealing with that post-acute withdrawal period and explaining and educating the person who's in recovery that this is a disease for them to manage the rest of their life, you start moving into the specifics of what that means. The term that we use to develop the skills to accomplish that are referred to as recovery capital. The first area in recovery capital is personal recovery capital. And there's two areas that we focus on with that. That's physical and human recovery capital. The physical recovery capital for the person deals with their physical health and wellness, their financial resources that are available to them when they discharge, their safe housing, who they live with, the access to transportation if they don't have their own primary vehicle, those kind of things. The second one of that, the human personal capital, deals with more of the psychiatric and psychological aspects of them identifying that they can have dreams, things that are deeply meaningful. In other words, things that they believe in, have value for, and are committed to. These are the things that become interrupted or the person doesn't have access to in the disease of addiction, but as the brain heals, this stuff starts to come back on board, identifying the things that they do believe in, the dreams that they have, and the belief that they can make choices and decisions to influence the fulfillment of those things. And so a significant amount of residential treatment focuses on those things as their brain starts to heal and they start to recapture who they are as individuals. And that recovery capital constitutes the clarity about what that is and the belief that they can access their gifts and talents to accomplish fulfillment in those areas. The second area of recovery capital deals with family and social areas of life. And that is, do they have family members who are not using and that it's safe for them to go home and associate with them, as well as those who are able to love them and care for them and support them in their recovery process. The third area is referred to as community recovery capital, also known as recovery-oriented systems of care. This is to educate and help those in residential treatment understand that there are resources that are there to support people in recovery efforts out in the community. There's vocational rehab organizations that help people in recovery look at skill development, access and get education, as well as get jobs. The other part of that community recovery capital is to identify maybe sober schools within the nation, career employers who are sensitive to people in recovery to give them opportunities to get back into the workplace. Another part of community recovery capital constitutes their access and being a part of recovery mutual aid groups. That may be AA, maybe sober baseball, or other community efforts that are there to support people in recovery. All these things, which constitute part of that Phoenix difference, is accomplished through individual therapy, group therapy. A very important and strategic part is recreational therapy, which it transcends that normal talk therapy where you take people out and experience things through clinically designed experiences that allow people to identify how they cope with new and unique and sensory-rich, emotionally laden experiences that help people start to build on that personal recovery capital that we talked about earlier. And that constitutes that residential treatment experience.